let me turn the story of the successful dojo to our guest speaker, Roy Kawaji. Yay.
Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning to some. My name is Roy Kawaji. Portland Judo opened about 10 years ago with no fanfare. It wasn't like a specific date I had in mind or a specific goal. It was just a desire to create a fun place to train. In the beginning, obviously, it was really, really small, but people started trickling in the very beginning to my former students that were finishing up at San Jose Judo. Came up, Louis Hung, Andy Hung. Andy Hung actually has a really branched off into this amazing brand, Judo Jiu-Jitsu brand called Dojo Outfitters. So I'm really happy for him. Another instructor, Eric Mader, actually started with us, and now he has his own dojo in Washington. So anyway, started off really, really small. And I guess the thing I want to get to is when I was invited to speak at this podcast webinar. It was going to be kind of labeled like how to run a successful dojo. And in a sense, I feel it really isn't. It's just my approach, the way I did things. I'm not a pro at this. I don't have like a business degree or anything. But I hope you guys leave today after hearing my story with maybe a renewed passion or just basically leave with something. I think what I want to say is, a lot of you guys attended clinics before. I've attended a lot of judo clinics myself, and there'll always be someone standing next to me that, just not fun to hang around, because right off the start, they will start with, I know all this stuff, teach me something new, or the worst is when I hear like, that's not the way I do it. At the same time, at the same clinic, you'll see people that are just really engaged in everything the person is saying. When I go to a clinic, I'm not just looking at the throw like it's osotogari or something. I like to look at the reactions of how that person interacts with everyone, how the message gets across. I even look at the person's haircut, how they tie their belt, everything. It's one thing that, if I kind of talk about things that I've seen before, heard before, I had the honor of watching Yamashita demonstrate osotogari. And I read his books, I've seen his videos, so obviously I could say, it's gonna be the same. But being there in person or listening to him, just the tone of his voice, the intensity of his eyes. But even when he threw someone, just the sound, that beautiful sound when like a callous feet swishes on the tatami. But the sound when he threw someone and the uke landed, it was like a signature, like a stamp, like if 3 people did that same throw, I was like, wow, that's just a beautiful sound. So even something as small as that really, really kind of excited me. So I hope that today you guys leave with something, and that would make me really, really happy. If this was a regular class, instead of a Zoom meeting, we all would bow in. And of course, this is not a class, so it'll be odd to kind of structure it that way. But I'm kind of used to that. This Zoom thing is kind of new to me. But in the beginning of class, the instructor would say, "Kyotsuke!" And everyone would kind of stand like this. And that has really special meaning to me, because a lot of you guys that study Japanese would know that Kyotsuke doesn't necessarily mean attention, like atton. The Kyotsuke literally means ki, as in your spirit, your source of power, and tsuke is tsukeru, means to put together. So it actually means everyone, kyotsuke, as a room, we have different ways of thinking, different beliefs, different lifestyles, but for this brief moment, let's kyotsuke, like let's join our spirits. So I thought, what would be the best way to do it? Because I'm gonna be sitting in this chair for a while. Please indulge me, and I'm gonna just do like a 30-second of a quick seated warm-up. And I hope you guys all join along. This would be the uniting of all of us. Okay, so everyone just roll your shoulders back with me. Okay, like this, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, roll your necks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Switch. There, ready for class. One thing I actually learned, this was not that long ago. This person was leading warm-ups and they said, if you want to stretch your neck, never start with your neck. Always do this first because the tension in your neck doesn't give your, in your traps, doesn't give your neck as much mobility. If you do this first, you'll notice that your head would rotate. So if you gain nothing from how I run my dojo, boom, you got that. So Chuck, it's a wrap. Everybody go to a fridge and grab a beer. We're not gonna talk about the dojo. We're just gonna, let's talk about share fun judo stories. Annoying parents or something like that.
I like that. Thanks a lot.
What is that? You like that? That's good, right? Everybody raise their hand. Give me a topic. That coach at the tournament or something. We could do that. We could see. But anyway, please stay engaged because like Dr. Chuck Madani said, I'd like to, after I speak a little, I don't want to keep talking. I want to get some feedback so I know that I'm not alone here staring at a screen like a crazy man. So what next? Personal history, or what do you want to hear about, Chuck?
Well, I think that since your personal history, a brief review of your personal history and how it affected what you do in your judo today. That was an important part of what you told me several weeks ago, and I was really impressed with it. Okay.
I hope I remember the stories, the things I told you. But I grew up in Kauai, in the state of Hawaii, and I moved to Oahu when I was 7. And it just so happens when you're like 5 and 6, or this doesn't matter where you live. When you're a kid, you're just back then, 60s and 70s, you know, you're free to roam the earth as long as you're back by sundown. And that was how it was for me. I mean, as long as I'm back home for dinner, that's cool. I could come home with like a branch sticking out of my body, you know, rocks stuck in my, or my eyes swollen because I got a bee sting and stuff like that. And you're home, that's good. Of course, you know, it was different, you know, nowadays because you have so much more to fear. Back then it was when I get home and my dad would see like a swollen eye and he would just slap it. You know, it's like, I just slapped the swollen eye. But that was my childhood that I had. When we moved to Oahu, we moved to Pearl City, and just next door happened to be Pearl City Honganji Judo Club, a really prominent judo club currently and back then too. And so my parents are from Japan. They're immigrants, so I didn't move here with a family. I don't have any relatives. So when I saw this dojo and I see like, you know, just tons of people, especially little kids, I moved to this new place. So I just walk on in. And back then, a sensei just literally grabbed me from the door, pulled me in, grabbed the gi and says, hey, put this on, you're training. You know, no waivers or anything, you just train. And I just kept doing that before I went home. And they became my siblings, my uncles, my aunts. And that welcoming feeling really played a big part in my love for judo. Even going to like tournaments. In Hawaii, there's a tournament every month. And my parents never ever came to see me do judo. They even haven't seen me compete. To them, it's like, as long as you're living a good life, that's the most important. So other parents would take me to tournaments, and my friends would always get yelled at by their parents. Obviously, it was like, you know, why didn't you do this? You weren't listening. That's not what I told you. And, you know, they'll be constantly getting yelled at. On my side, that, you know, I'm not their kid. So it was always, hey, good job. Good job. You know, did you have fun? Go to the concession. Here's a quarter, you know, go get something to eat. So that was my introduction into judo. Come in, have fun. Doesn't matter if you win or lose, just compete at every tournament. And I carry that, I think, in the way that I want to introduce, especially kids, to the dojo. Of course, when I got to high school judo became really tough. But by that time, you know, my love for judo was baked in. I wasn't going to quit. And on today's subject of how to retain members, that is really different from how to run a competitive judo club. That's a totally different animal in itself. You know, running a competitive judo club, you know, that's like, hey, turn the heat up, you know, lock the door, don't let anyone in. That's different. That's not how you want to treat beginners. But yeah, that's my what kind of shaped my judo. And of course, my sensei was amazing. He was the first to show up to the dojo, the last to leave. And he was amazing. He was from Japan, and he was coaching in the army. And he had amazing students. My senpai is Kevin Asano, as a lot of you folks know. That was one of his students. Another senpai was Keith Nakasone, who was Olympic team captain. He was at San Jose State. And within that same group, there's me. I'm like this kind of this clown, but he never ever treated me any different. It wasn't like I'm gonna only focus on the strong kids. I'm gonna only focus on the ones with talent. In fact, one day I actually asked my sensei, I come to practice every day, even more than some of the other students. Why is it that I don't win? And he just straight out said, hey, Roy, that's because you have no talent. And I was like, what? You have no talent? And he just said, yeah, you have no talent. And I said, so I said, what can I do? I'm just going to be a failure in judo. And he said straight out, no, you have to practice 10 times more to catch up to people with talent. And that kind of was like, that's a lot, because maybe twice as much. And he was like, no, you don't understand. Well, you really, you have no talent. You have the heart, but you have no talent. So but even with that, he greeted me. He didn't say like, Roy, you sit out, you're only going to be okay. He would let me compete, and he took me in. And so I want my instructors to give that kind of love to every student. Once in a while, I'll even have one of my newer senseis say something like, it was a small class, only one kid showed up or something like that. And I'd be like, that one kid was me. That one kid was me. And I never felt at any time it was like, you're a waste of time. It was like, hey, Roy, you showed up. Let's do judo. So that's something I always take with me. And because if it wasn't for someone giving me a chance to prove myself, so take care of all your students. You never know which crazy little kid might end up, opening up a dojo and continuing it. So where's Chuck?
Oh yeah, I think that's very interesting. I think that I'd like to stop just right here, earlier than I thought. But what I'd like to do is throw it open for questions about, or comments about, how other people try to develop this feeling of being welcomed and having fun. And are there different techniques that, well, first of all, that you use specifically to make sure that people are welcome? And I'd like to know from other people also, if they could raise their hands electronically, what they do to create a welcoming environment for their students. Roy, what do you? Yeah, Roy, why don't you start it off? And
okay.
Are there specific things that you do to welcome, to keep people in a welcoming mode? Or
of course. It always starts with greeting. I think that's something that's kind of lost in today as culture. When somebody walks into a dojo, if it's a current student, their name gets yelled out. It's like that, that sitcom Cheers, and everyone comes and says, Norm. I mean, everybody will yell your name out. If Mitch walks in, Sensei Mitch walks in, I will just yell, hey, Sensei, you kind of made it. And that's kind of the start. If newer students come in, I think it's, you must walk up to someone that you don't recognize and greet them. I often went into I visited a lot of clubs, judo clubs, jiu-jitsu clubs, just other sports clubs. And the worst feeling is if I walk in and people just kind of look at you, and then after a while, they kind of just look away. I've even been to some clubs, I'm not talking about it, but it's just a different way they run it. But there'll be a group of black belts, and the black belts will kind of just look at me, and I'm kind of like, but no one would approach me. And that's okay, because I'm not saying, hey, I'm special. Someone, would you say hi to me? But in my dojo, if you're a black belt or brown belt or higher ranking, you're the one that must run up to the beginner and greet them to the club, because you're like the ambassador to the club. And that's the first step. And if I know that they're interested in joining, I will never talk about a club or having them try to join. It'll always be something about them. Hope traffic wasn't too bad. you know, what other sports do you take? You know, a lot of them like soccer. So we start talking about soccer and things like that. And so the judo topic doesn't come about too much, but the greeting is the most important, I think. And that goes throughout class. I know all the kids' names. If the parent is watching, I'll know the parents' names because I have to tell the parent, hey, so-and-so, sit down, stop talking to your kid. Or I know the name of the siblings, wives, uncles, whoever drops them off. And the most important, I think, is other than just the greeting part, at the end of class, I think a lot of times the class ends with, you know, just a bow. They might, hopefully, the instructor will say thank you, but the class has to end with some kind of message. And usually I think the message should be one of gratitude, should be one of gratitude. Can I just jump into this quick story right now, Chuck?
Please do, please do.
Okay. So this has a lot to do with how I view the dojo, even when I opened it. And it's the story, you know, my dad and I, we love each other and we have these amazing conversations, but he always would, you know, he's from Japan and he's kind of like this Confucius kind of guy. And he would always give me these riddles of sorts. And I stopped by his house. I was older then. I was like maybe 30 or 35. I was having a successful coaching career at that time. And he came up to me and, you know, I went over for dinner and we're just eating. I got my bowl of rice and he looks at me and he's like, Roy, I have a question. I have a question for you. And I'm like, man, Mom, I just want to eat my rice and move on. I just came to, and he's like, Roy, no, I have a question. And I'm like, oh, I'm a grown man, but here, let's do it. I'm like, okay, Dad, you tell me, give me the question. He's like, Roy, okay, you tell me why you can see, Roy, you tell me. And I'm like, okay, let's do this. Ready? My eyes, Dad. Hey, my eyes. All right, we good? Can we eat? And he had this kind of sadness, but it's like, I know you say eyes. I know, because you're so selfish, Roy. You're selfish. You cannot see because of your eyes. You see because of the light. With no light, your eyes are useless. Why do you think you're coaching sensei, black belt? You win tournaments? It's like, that's nothing to do with it. You have students. You have people that go to you. This is your light. Without the light, you're nothing. And, you know, he likes to put me in my place. I'll probably share a few more stories throughout the day, but I love my dad, but he was strict and he really liked to put me in my place. But that was really humbling hearing that. And that really shaped me because I think opening a dojo can be really dangerous. You know, a lot of people say that a dojo is an extension of the person's ego, because that's, you could be like a nobody, nothing, and you open a dojo, someone walks in and they have to call you sensei or master, and they bow and like, hey, yeah, look, you know, my fam, nobody likes me, but I come in here and people bow to me. And that power trip is dangerous. And my dad would always say, you know, to make sure that never happens, he's like, whenever you enter into the room, you must always become the lowest person in that room. Easier said than done, because I would walk into a place like I could beat that guy. Look at that guy, you know? So any comment like, you know, but to walk in and just immediately take that approach. So even like the Dr. Chuck was saying about the greetings, I mean, it's my job to bow my head and run. Thank you for recognizing judo, because this is something I love. If you never walked in, this dojo doesn't really exist. It's just a hut. I'm the one that cleans the mat. I still clean the toilets. I take out the rubbish. And of course, people help. Everybody chips in. But even if they say, Sensei, I got it, I mean, I want to keep doing it. I think if you're younger and you're playing, you get humbled in the dojo because, you know, you can randori and people keep beating you. I don't randori so much. So in my mind, it's like, Roy, stay, you know, remember what your father said, you know, be the servant, you know, and just be that and live that lifestyle. And there's a book written about that, right? Like leaders eat last or something like that. I think that's the way it should be. You know, students eat first, senseis senseis eat last. Kids eat first, right? Kids eat first. Parents eat last. Or if you're struggling, you don't eat at all. So
Let me ask you a question
went off the
about that.
subject. Kind of went off the subject of.
No, I think
reading.
I think it's right on the subject. Let me ask you a question about that. You can walk into your dojo or any dojo and be at least to yourself, the lowest person there.
Mhm.
You must have assistant instructors. How do you teach people who are, let's say, high rank or a higher level brown belts or like Shodan, Nidan, Sandans, that humility is important? You can't just say, "Oh, look at this poster. It says humility is important." Do you do that? And
That was my secret.
and how would you suggest that we as senseis help to communicate that? What's an effective way that you have seen to successfully tell your assistants and the people who are in the middle of their careers that humility is much more than just humility? It sends a message.
It's like I said, at the end of class, there's always a message of gratitude, like the story of a light. I repeat that at least once a month, and I constantly let them know my thoughts on it. So yeah, I mean, other than the board that says humility or something, I always share my thoughts after every practice. And some if they're like teenage kids, got that. It's like sensei is gonna talk for another 5 minutes, but I don't care. My thing is, I hope that something sticks. But this is important. When I talk to the kids at the end of the class, I'm actually talking to my instructors too. I'm talking to the parents too, and I think that message is a lot of times more important than the techniques that were taught throughout the day, because like I think Sensei Mitch says, we're trying to create winners in life. And so I kind of always want to even spend 5 minutes is long at the end of class, but even 5 minutes, I would let them sit and force them to listen. The structure of how I even have the club set up, and this is just my personal opinion, so I hope that if any of you guys do anything differently, please don't change it. I mean, what works for you works for you. This is just the way I kind of like having things set up, and it just worked out really good for my club and the culture of the club. But none of the senseis are allowed to sit in front of the dojo at the shomen. It's like there's the students on one side, I'm not sure, and then we sit to the right of the students, where usually the brown belts or some of the assistants would sit. And when I opened my club, I didn't like the fact, sensei nire, everybody's bowing to me, and then shomen ni. So I actually sit to the side. And so the students never bow to me at the end of class. They're bowing to judo itself. We have a picture of Kano. So we say kamizani, it's the top seat. But, and I always tell them that I don't think even if my rank ever goes up, I'll never take that top seat. I always would sit here, and I expect all my instructors to sit on the side with me. If we have special guests, we have a Shepherd Sensei or Saito Sensei come to our class and teach kata, please take that seat. But for myself, I have to, a lot of the things I say is not just for the instructors, it's to remind myself. Because if you keep preaching stuff, you better live up to it, because like I said, senseis, and if you're strong too, if you're physically strong and you can really handle everyone, then that's a real easy way to initially manage people. I'm sure a lot of you guys heard this saying that fear is the most despicable form of respect. And you want to lead with love, but fear works. If you're afraid of someone, you end up listening to them. But that's a really short term. You might grow as your base at that moment, but nobody wants to live in fear. As soon as they realize that you're not as strong as you are, or they can beat you, or you're not that powerful a person, they just want to oust you. It's more like how like mafia is built, right? Everybody wants to overtake the boss. No one really loves the person. They're just afraid of them. They don't want to get killed by him. So my whole thing is that if I just try and lead by fear alone, I mean, my students can beat me at this point. They're tough, but kind of like my sensei, kind of thing. I love my sensei. And I think the hierarchy of how judo is built is kind of like a family. I've heard actual students talk to someone that's their senior, but not at my club. I heard they said, it's like, why should I listen to you, man? I beat you. I could beat you. You know, it's like, what a horrible thing to say. I mean, you know, that's the equivalent of like telling like your grandmother, it's like, hey, grandma, man, I can push you down. So why should I listen to you? It's really not the point. You know, you love that person. And if it's done right, then your club just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And everybody just keeps loving everyone above them. And
let me
once
just,
again, I spoke kind of long there.
no, I think that those are important messages, but I'd like to remind everybody that who's on this call, on this Zoom, that that Roy has built his club, Portland Judo, into the largest club, well, the club with the largest USJF membership in the country. He did that after about, I think it was 3 or 4 years, and the next year he won it again, and he's done that several times. And so these things that he's talking about are things that I personally have never heard, or most of these things I've never heard from a senior judo player. And I think this is fascinating that what he's talked about in the last 10 minutes or so is an important building block, one of the many building blocks that Roy Kawaji has brought together to build his judo club. It's not the best competitive club. It's not the best kata club or whatever. Maybe it is the best kata club, competitive club, but that's not what he's going for. And I just wanted to remind people who may be, you know, listening to these things for the first time that this is extremely important because he has gotten results. But let me ask if there's anybody who would like to comment further on this, raise your hand under that reactions button, and then we'll see what other people have to say about this. Okay, I think we should time to go on then. There's one, Mickey Takamori from Quincy, Massachusetts.
I think everybody knows my dad. They were all afraid of him. But everybody knew that he loved them being in the class.
He loved them though, that's the thing.
But everybody was afraid of him too.
Well, I can support that because I was in his club and I never wanted to cross Jimmy, like ever, never. On the other hand, let me just also comment about the word sensei. Jimmy Takamori never asked me or anybody else to call him sensei. It was always Jim or Jimmy. Even when you're a kid, it was Jimmy. And maybe the younger kids might have called him sensei, but I never heard it. And when people started calling Shodan sensei, it was really kind of odd to me because good old Jim, it was Jim, it wasn't Jim sensei. Gary Goltz has his hands up. His hand up anyway.
Hey, Roy, I got to tell you, I looked at your website and I heard some of the things you just said, and I've been listening to you and to Grace. And, you know, there's like a new breed of judo that I see coming out, a very positive, very engaging. And you said something earlier, I don't know if you even thought about it, but it's something I really have brought into my club since I reopened this week. And it's not about the winning or losing. And I don't want to sound like a bleeding heart liberal. It's not how you play the game. It's that you play the game. I mean, you know, that's what's important. I mean, it took me a long time to understand that from Mr. Kim. He wanted me to go to the tournaments and he didn't care whether I won or lost. And this is what people need right now. They need to put their, you know, it's Mushin, it's all these concepts. If you don't get engaged, you're not in the arena. And that's what I think, you know, as sensei, we have to bring, it goes back to the origins of what Kano had in mind. I'm convinced of it. And I think, you know, this new positive, just get out there, be involved, don't worry about the outcome. Mushin, no mind, be present. I think that's really, really where it's at. And my hat's off to you because I mean, you just exude that. It just comes across just in your very presence.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Let me make one other comment here, and that is that on the East Coast, and I'm sure it happens everywhere, we have seen coaches screaming at kids who lost, 9 and 10-year-old and 11-year-old kids screaming on the edge of the mat because they lost. We've also seen one person who's fortunately has left the area or left participation in USJF, who was actually physically abusive of his kids. And that's a spectrum, the end of the spectrum that you will never want to take a look at. You never want to see, because it has legal implications too. But there are people out there, and if you think to yourself, oh, well, we would never do that, there are people who would do it. And your approach is just, as Gary has just said, it's just the opposite end of that spectrum, and very positive and very engaging. And I think it's just wonderful. Let me suggest that I'm sorry, go ahead. You were about to say something.
Me?
Roy, yeah.
Oh.
Looked like you were ready to do something.
Oh, yeah. Well, kind of, but I was just kind of thinking, I don't want people to get me wrong. We like to win, we're not like, we do really, we have all our national champs and stuff, and tournament is real crucial. I encourage our students to compete. But yeah, the way not handle, but my approach to why they should compete might be a little bit different. Because a kid that isn't a really good judo, like no talent, like it's right here, and he does pretty good, that's a success in itself. And even at tournaments, I often notice that if there's like a national champ that's holding on to a title that's going up, or a really good player, all the coaches, I always notice that, would gravitate towards that and want to be that kid's coach. Like, there's a seat, that person's playing, and there's 3-4 other coaches, and when they do a throw, they'll be like, yeah, I taught him that, kind of thing. My whole concept into coaching is, if I'm the only person, I have to kind of jump around. But if a kid is winning, I'll never coach that kid. I think that person already has what it is that could make them win inside, and I'll always have a beginner coach. But if a kid loses or is losing a match, that is the chair I must be in. And I often notice that it's the opposite. Instructors don't want to be accountable for the kid that lost. It's like, oh, I walk away really quick. But if a kid's win, I want to be there, hug them. But my thing is, if I want to coach the kid that has lost 3 or 4 matches, and be standing on the side and telling me, come back, because I'm gonna be here for you. And that's my approach. So if you lose, you're not gonna get yelled at. It's my fault, right? It's not the kid's trying, or kid or adult, doesn't matter. That they're not going out there trying to lose. So I should yell at the senseis or yell at myself, right? So
no, thank you.
Yeah.
Let me suggest that we move onward, and these questions that I have come from, well, further discussions with you, but initially when you talked to me about who teaches the beginners in your club, could you talk about that? I know you know what I'm talking about. Like, beginners, who does the teaching?
So I'm not going to get so much into the curriculum part, but how the class structure and my approach to it is, beginners are really important. And I don't want to say this is how we retain, because we don't want to ever trap a student. That's never the case, or force people to join. But once they step onto the mat, the highest instructor or the best instructor always works with beginners. It's in most clubs, it's like, the lower ranks or brown belt might take care of the beginners, and then the intermediate, and then the advanced class. That's where all the high level senseis or the really good instructors are. My thought is, as they get better, they need less instructions, more people to kind of work with them. But as a beginner, that is their foundation. So the highest instructor always would work with a beginner. So in the beginner, I teach all the beginner classes, and my assistants teaches the advanced classes, which is more fun. But to me, I want to teach the advanced class and work on special techniques. But my thing is, highest ranks, and I say best instructors, or the instructors with the most experience always should take on that role. And I think for a beginner, if a beginner comes in, and maybe this is the part of attracting or retaining students, if let's say you went to a karate class or jiu-jitsu class, and it's your first day, and then some beginner is kind of working with you, But the lead instructor, the guy that's on the face of everything, comes and says, I'm going to work with you. And he works with you pretty much every day. I mean, that feels good. That means you really, really matter. And any questions you have, your sense of belonging, you're with the, not the top guy, but the top people. So that's one thing that's really important. And same with randori. I'll never have two white belts randori with each other. I mean, that's outright dangerous, you know. I personally don't like going white belts because when they throw you, it's horrible. But advanced, the best people always go with the beginners if you have the luxury in that class. And even for uchikomi, I think if two white belt beginners, you pair them up because it's like the brown belts, you know, uchikomi here, the white belts uchikomi, two white belts uchikomi. It's just ugly. You know, nobody really wants to see that, but that's our fault if you let that happen. You probably heard the saying something like, if you 10 minutes uchikomi with a black belt, someone with good experience, that's the equivalent of like 10 hours uchikomi with someone that's not that good, because the black belt, I'm just using black belt as, you know, as a whole for someone with experience. That's the mold. So if you have a bad mold, you can uchikomi into that. Your shape of your throw will always be ugly. But if you could tell them, hey, pull your hand when you go in, or turn your hip. If you had a good instructor, I'm sure all of you have, you go in, they raise your hand for you. They push your hip. They actually, you know, take the shape each time you go in, and they'll literally mold you. So from the very beginning, highest ranking people must go with the people that just walked in for the first week or so. Even if it's not fun and you rather be, you know, kicking butt with your senior friends, you have to go in and really, really shape them. And even on uchikomi side, it's like getting back to that mold. It's all that in this generation. Let's say if someone's doing uchikomi, the tori and the uke, and everyone will yell at the tori like, hey, do this, do that. You know, it's the uke. It's usually the uke's fault. Instructors should yell at the uke. If you have a bad uke, I don't care how good give me a good technician. I'd be a terrible uke. I make that person look bad. I fall to the side, you know, I put my body in a weird place. So Mickey, Mickey has
Mickey, your hands up.
Yeah, I had a question. You know, I'm the same way. I like to teach the beginners because if they don't fall properly, it's my fault. Yeah. But how do we ever get the lower ranked people ready to be able to teach? I find that I feel like I need to eventually delegate this work, but I do feel that I want to do it. That if I can't show it to them, it might not come out right. Yeah. I just want you to comment on how you get your people ready for that part.
Once they get to a certain rank, and no, not specific, but you know, like a brown belt, if they're like a green belt, blue belt level, I'm fine with having brown belts teach and blue belts teach. And after a while, they start teaching each other. And any of the instructors, myself, I kind of know what they're trying to do. They understand. They can almost self-correct. Like if they're doing like a uchikomi, I can kind of just say like, turn your head, you know, your feet, pivot more, you know, where your hips are, look at where your hands are. And so at that moment, they're helping each other already. But yeah, a lot of the other instructors, they take over that. And I guess I'm focused more on the beginner, meaning that person that just walked in. And I think that's what makes our club attractive. If it's your first day, you get a lot of attention given to you. It's not like, you know, it's like they're a baby in judo. They might be a grown man, but they're a baby. So, but no, all my brown belts, blue belts, not so much. This seems wrong, but I think some of you senseis might agree with me on this one. So I'm just going to say it out loud. I know I'm smiling all the time, but you know, I do, I can give that stare. I do get upset at dojo, at the dojo too. And if like a blue belt is telling, hey, do this, I'm like, and it goes like, hey, you should keep your mouth shut. You know, so you work on your stuff. Don't be giving too much information just yet. You're not at that point. Try to be not too rude, but you know, there's some green belts at that point that would want to start correcting white belts and stuff. And I'm like, no. Just work on what you have to work on. So, but I run at the brown belt level, the Sankyu, Nikkyu, Ikkyu. If they're at the Shodan level, I think at the moment when our dojo feels that they can get a promotion, I would have them run like an intermediate or advanced class or something real specific, because they have all the knowledge. And a lot of them have way more, believe it or not, a lot of them have way more knowledge than me, because we live in a world where, you know, YouTube and stuff, they'll be giving pointers and I'll be watching, then I'm like, I never seen that. Actually, sometimes I hate walking into a class that one of my other senseis is teaching, because, you know, I think I make them feel uncomfortable. Kind of like when Sensei Mitch, you walked in, I was like, oh no, Mitch is watching me, you know? But when I walk in, they kind of like, oh no, I can see that they're more tentative in their words. And after they taught something, they came up to me and they said, hey, Sensei, did I teach that correctly? And my answer to that was, wow, that was better than I ever taught it in my life. I'm gonna teach it exactly the way you taught it. Chances are they went and looked at like 10 YouTube stations from the best in the world and how to break it down, which I don't. I mean, I should be studying more, but I'm not at that point. My younger students who are just into judo, they're watching every single match I don't watch all those matches. So they know a lot more. But when it gets to beginners, I don't think they have what is that? The foundation or the principle of judo. They have knowledge, but not enough to, if someone is hurt, you know, to tell them, no, you should stop that. That's going to hurt your back. But your ukemi is your fall, you're twisted a bit, you know. So the important foundation part, I really want to be a part of that. But my other instructors take care of everything else. That's my
thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else with questions about this particular topic before we move on? One of the things that I remember that, Dr. Menzel.
Hi, doctor.
You're on.
Hi, Lorenzo's fine. So you were talking about teaching your beginners ukemi. I started judo in Germany, and the European approach is we stress newaza while we're teaching ukemi. So your first throw doesn't come until 2 or 3 weeks in. Is this something that you thought of, or are you just going straight for ukemi and throws? So I'm kind of curious where your approach differs from mine.
A beginner student will never get thrown, but the ukemi from the very beginning day, that's what we get into ukemi right away. Not, you know, just as simple as sitting on your butt and rolling back, even without slapping the mat, just getting that nice shape down. So the basic shape of how to roll back, we get into that right away. And I really stress that if you're not ready to take a fall, I don't care if it's year 3 months into it, 4 months into it, just tell your the tori or the partner you're working at, it's like, I'm not ready yet. And at that moment, if the other person throws that person, I'd be really, really upset. That person might be, you know, we have people that have had a broken neck before. I mean, you know, and came with an injury or back injury. Somebody might have had a stroke, or, you know, just something wrong with their body, or just a fear of falling. And if they can't overcome that, then I don't think they should be getting thrown. Obviously, I might suggest at a certain point that judo is not the sport for you, because if you can't get past that, hard to be a good partner. And, you know, you can't expect everyone to have to cater to you. But ukemi we ukemi a lot. And the part for judo, teaching judo is hard, is other than, you know, you're not just teaching techniques, you have to teach the etiquette and the way of judo, how to live the life. But this ukemi, the constant just learning how to fall, as an instructor, you want to get to the point where you're watching randori and you're just enjoying it, because everyone's just throwing each other and giving good falls. But I know a lot of you guys been in situations where you're like, and you know that some of them are just not ready to fall. And if that's the case, then I don't think you're running a good randori program. You got to pull those people out, because peer pressure makes guys just want to hop in, even if they're not ready. Like, they're scared to fall, but someone's like, let's go. And they're like, okay. And my thing is like, no. And then chances are they'll fall and they're like, oh, you know, they go home and then their back aches a little bit. And of course that question will pop into their head, like, why am I doing this? And my thing is, yeah, judo, there is something for everyone in judo, but it is really not for everyone. I mean, if it's, and it doesn't take much. You go home and like, I don't feel good. You're not ever going to come back. And I don't want that to happen because you rushed it. I don't care if you take 5 years. You come to stay in the corner and ukemi all day. If you can do that, then do that. Work up a sweat.
I think the message that you are giving is clear, and we don't think about that very often, that you don't want people to do things they're not ready for. And you know that teens and kids are going to be, they're very susceptible to peer pressure.
Yeah.
And when you actually mentioned this to me a few weeks ago, and I recalled my experience in my very first dojo, and there was a kid named Paul who was much taller than I was. I think I was 12. I'm not big now, and I was even smaller then. And he would throw me with ogoshi, and it felt like falling off a cliff. And I hated to take falls. And I think it really, it put a big damper on my judo. And I'm glad that you're talking about how you, as an experienced sensei, feel that that's just not the way to approach it. And you don't have to convince anybody. I think that this is one of the approaches that work, because you've been so successful. We should move on because time is going by. Yeah, go ahead, Roy.
Yeah.
Please.
So once again, this is really pertaining to how beginners are treated, and I don't ever want to get the impression that judo should just coddle people. I mean, it is a tough sport, and once you get to like I said, the competition, and you have built yourself up. You gotta be willing to take a licking. I mean, it's a club that doesn't have that aspect of it too is not going to be attractive. Even beginners that don't compete like knowing that there are competitors. Like on our team, we have people that compete in nationals and win gold medals, and to be able to play them. So playing at that high level is really important for our club too. And it just that I just want to make sure the person is prepared for it as a judoka coming in. I kind of practiced judo since like when I was kind of a kid. So by the time I was like Keith, if Keith Nakasone threw me, I was like intermediate. I still remember the story. I was like 11, and he threw me, but his kuzushi just kind of snapped me. I think he might have snapped my neck like that or something. But he threw me, and I basically passed out. And I mean, we could share stories like this all the time. And I kind of just woke up like that, and then I just saw people's backs like that. I was like, what just happened? So I kind of, and all my friends are sitting, and I got. I said, what happened? He goes, oh man, he just slammed you, man. Slammed you on your head, just knocked out. And I said, and then what happened? He goes, he grabbed me and he threw me off the mat to the side behind my friends. And then right there, my whole thing was like, hey, I'm gonna get another round with them. And you kind of shimmy your way back in. So yeah, I guess the message, I don't want people to think like, oh, Portland Judo, it's all about numbers. It's not. Our goal was never to get the biggest. I think, but as a dojo owner or a new dojo owner, how to run a club where everyone feels welcome, you need this aspect. But having that, we do have that other class, but that's just not the subject. So I hope I don't, to all my Portland Judo friends out there, I hope, they're thinking, hey, Roy, you're making us seem like nobody takes falls. No, we enjoy a nice.
I think your message is that people do what they do when they're ready for it.
Yes. Let's say that.
Well, one of the other things, Mickey, you had your hand up again.
Yes.
Mickey.
Quick. What age do you start students at?
We take at age 5. However, if they have a sibling, like a 7-8-year-old, and they have like a 4-year-old, kid that's always on the side, we have taken your 4-year-olds, but 5.
Okay. And
yes.
My other thing is that a couple of years ago, the nationals were in Michigan, and they taught the Kodokan sent. They had a Kodokan group that were teaching, and they talked about how there were a lot of injuries in Japan from being thrown. And so they looked at how they were doing the throws, and they were teaching a lot of the beginners that instead of throwing from standing, which for a lot of, especially adults, it's really scary, they did it from the knees.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was a developmental thing that I've instituted. I just wanted to say that. Thank you very much. Keep going. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
No, no, I love it. I love it. Yeah, that kneeling, start on 2 knees, 1 leg up. Yeah, no, we do a lot of that.
Right.
Uchikomi is crucial for our growth.
No, years and years ago, Erwin Cohen came to the East Coast and did a clinic, and he showed how he teaches the beginners his Taitoshi, and Erwin could throw everybody and anybody at any time for seemingly with Taitoshi. But he started them off by taking falls from their knees. And I had never seen that before because, well, I guess I had not seen a whole lot of really outstanding senseis at that point. But it was very, very key to me to learn that. And I've done the same thing subsequently. You have told me in the past that one of the reasons that, and you mentioned it a little earlier, one of the reasons that people enjoy coming to your club is that everybody shouts out and knows their name, and that's great. But what happens when somebody decides they want to quit? Do you do anything special? Do you follow it up? Do you encourage them to stay? How do you approach that?
Students do quit, and I kind of want them to quit. I mean, judo really, like I mentioned earlier, isn't for everyone. If I know that a kid's not feeling it, I would actually say it out loud. It's like, hey, you ever tried another sport? There's a lot of other martial arts too that you could try. But I think it's wrong if when they're really young, of course, they don't what they want. They just want to just go home and just be lazy. So yeah, you got to force them until they kind of make them kind of get more into it. But if I kind of talk more as far as adults, yeah, I will never ever tell someone to stay. Of course I would tell them, even if you leave, when we have a next party, I want you to show up. And like sometimes at party, like dozen of them do show up because they like the camaraderie, the friendship they build. But I can't tell people you can't quit judo. I mean, I've quit other sports. I mean, baseball, I don't like it. Basketball, I didn't like it. Well, I was real terrible at it. I did karate for 2 years. After high school, I said, I'm done with judo, right? Competing in nationals and all that. I said, I want to do something else. And I did karate. So, it was okay, but I didn't like it. I quit, but I always came back to judo. Jiu-jitsu, same thing. I did jiu-jitsu for a while, but I'm like, I really like judo. So I'm a quitter, so to tell people you got to do what I like, it just doesn't seem right. But I'm not going to I don't want to lose a friend over it, someone I met. So
well, let me interject here and just remind people that this is a very interesting conversation, and we're at 10 after the hour, and we should go for another 15 or 20 minutes before we wrap it up. So I think that if we attend to that, it'll be a reasonable amount of time for this discussion. But let me start off this part of the list, this last part, to ask you how you market or advertise your dojo.
The first couple of years, of course, I would show up on the scheduled times and no one would walk in. I've been off for like 2-3 months, but I had to show up because I kind of wrote I think maybe online or something. But so the first 2 years I did promote a little. I put flyers in my neighborhood, kind of stuff. But after the second year, we just stopped promoting the club in the conventional way. We did it with we had a lot of Portland Judo brand gear, so meaning like shirts and sweats. And so that was word of mouth because everyone just liked wearing our things, like our hoodies, and we had caps. And so that was one. I think we had really, really cool stuff, bags and stuff like that. Other than that, we went really heavy on inviting people. Like I mentioned earlier, like, Shepherd Sensei for kata. And we had people like Iliadis, Yarden Gerby, invited them. At the same time, even within the country, Marty Malloy, Travis Stevens, Jimmy Pedro, Mike Swain, like local heroes who made sure they come in. So I think that put us on the radar within other dojos, but people in the neighborhood and newspapers picked up on it. TV stations would come down and interview our dojo because we had, something big going on. I kind of mentioned parties. We throw big parties. That's more on retention, I guess. But on the website, I think I come kind of from the graphic design marketing, that line of work. So I always knew that, making a website, the name was really crucial. So I actually thought of the name knowing that it was going to be important for websites. So instead of picking a obscure name, which I thought, I could say something in Japanese that meant the most powerful or something like that. I thought, okay, what is a key search words, right? So Portland and then judo. We didn't have to put anything other than that, institute, academy, or club, So I was like, let's just call it Portland Judo. So day one, if you type in Portland and judo, we're #1. So I kind of knew that. So I kind of had an edge.
Okay, let me just tell people, if they don't know, that your background is in art and graphic arts.
Yeah, graphic. I was actually my parents sent me. I went as an architect student, and I quit the first year because I like to draw. So I said, Dad, I want to be an art major. So he was super disappointed as a Asian dad. He'd come to accept that I'm always going to be his weird son. So
well, a couple of other things before we wrap it up. One is social media. Do you do a lot of social media? Because that seems to be, and Mitchell reminds us that anybody of our age or that this has no idea about what's going on with social media, and the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds use that exclusively for all their information. How do you approach social media, and how does it help?
I have the younger students take care of it for me. So they take care of my Instagram, and I'll send them photos. And up until like about last year, I've never ever posted anything. I've never did an Instagram post. I don't know how to do it. It's not difficult, but I just have no interest in it. So I had other people take care of that for me. And Facebook, it was been around enough where I just kind of put photos up. But yeah, we got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and everything is tied into our website. And yeah, everything is integrated. So I think that's
all right. Thank you. The last topic I'd like to approach is something that you've already spoken about just now, in fact, and that's your website. When I went to your website, I was impressed with how as I mentioned before, the visual and the written messages were very strong and to me, were welcoming and very interesting. And I've looked at a lot of websites in the past, and I look at our own at Shufu, and it looks fairly sterile next to what you have. Mitchell, can I share my screen? Mitchell, you're muted. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can share. Go to share screen.
Okay. Let me see right here. Can you see that? Portland Judo?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to point out was that a couple things on this, and ask Roy about this. The first thing that comes up is the schedule. Why did you decide to put the schedule on the front page, the home page?
Well, it's kind of by necessity too, because of the pandemic. When we opened up 2 classes and went to 4 classes, and so much was going on that so initially, and thank you for saying it's a good idea. Initially, it was on the place that said classes, but it got pushed to the front only because before the pandemic, we had 20 judo classes a week. And I think we built up to about 12, but it's a slow build up. So every month, another class gets popped on. So I had to make it. See, updated July 1st. We added another class just last week. So that was one of the reasons. But now, having seen it and you mentioning it, I think I'll leave it up because of your great advice.
All right. The next thing was, and I looked at this for the first time a few weeks ago.
That's our dojo.
That's your dojo.
Yes.
And that's a fabulous looking dojo. I'm sure that everybody on this call is drooling over this one. You can also tell, I'm sure Val Brink can tell, that it's a wide angle lens and it looks like it's like a mile wide, but it's still pretty cool. It's a solid mat, and Roy has told me that it's seamless, and it's in a Quonset hut, and it looks clean and attractive. I'm just giving you my impression of what I felt or saw and felt when I saw Roy's website. And if you look at this this narrative right here, it's very welcoming. And I'm not going to go through it, but I'm just telling you that you should, people on this call should, and it's a welcoming narrative. A couple of other things that I noticed here, and classes, when they talk about, when Roy has, and Roy wrote most of these things, when Roy talks about what the beginners class is and the advanced and judo, it's all welcoming. It's very, very descriptive, and people, I don't think that people would be surprised at anything that goes on. Then there's rates. One of the things that I noticed was the testimonials. Now, testimonials, you can say, well, so, he pays people. Now, these people really enjoyed going to Portland Judo. And there are at least one, maybe more here. Jordan Sin, NFL linebackers for the Carolina Panthers. Now that's a great testimonial, and he has testimonials that are really very enjoyable to read. And I don't read much testimonials, but these I read. The next part that I saw was the pictures, and I'm a visual kind of guy too. I like photography, so. If you notice these pictures, these are a bunch of regular people with regular, non-formal pictures. And you see Roy, he's here having a great time, laughing at some joke. The guy with no shirt, and very casual photos on this thing, and his instructors. And this doesn't say formal. This says we're all a bunch of regular people. Please come in. And I think that was about all I wanted to say. Oh, he's got Facebook, and I think there was another social media link on the front page. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention, not to go through it in detail, but to suggest that people read or look at this website and the ideas and the verbiage that Roy used to explain things and to put people at ease when they want to give that call. Can I join judo? And I think that he's done a great job at that. And I kept on talking to him about it. He says, well, yeah, our website's not important. Well, it is. And I think that he did an outstanding job with the pictures and the narrative, and we should all learn from that. Roy, back to you.
Thank you. So, yeah, well, I'm kind of glad you guys liked it. I kind of, websites are not my specialty. I've seen amazing websites that look really nice, but I guess we have a lot of friends that do websites, and they give me a lot of suggestions, and I keep telling them that, well, we're a dojo, we're not like a design company. So I want to tell them when we practice, and straight out, this is how much we cost. And these are questions if you have any. Other than that, if I go to some place and they don't tell me how much they cost, I don't, most people are hesitant. I don't want to talk to someone and then say, I'm not interested after I hear the cost. Just tell me how much it is. And if someone contacts me, they already know how much they cost. So I'm over that hurdle. It's going to be 70 for USJF, geese cost 60, and you got to get $100 just off the top for monthly. And so if you don't have that, then, I'm not going to waste your time. So yeah, basic stuff.
Well, it's about 20 past the hour. I think that we've done quite a bit, and Roy has talked quite a bit about a large number of things that maybe you haven't thought about, and his approach is not unique, I'm sure, but it may not be the same as many of us have learned, unfortunately, through the years of growing up in judo. Could you, anybody out there, questions, comments, anything at all? Brian.
Yeah, hi, Roy. This is Brian Dooley with OC Judo, and we've been a big fan of what you and Andy have been doing up there for a number of years. And one of the things that you're doing that is very unique across the country is you have Andy's jiu-jitsu, and you also have for adults for the judo, and they're treated fairly, in my opinion, in terms of being able to attract students because you have similar hours for both of them. And so my son is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a judo black belt. He's opening up his club fairly soon. It'll be, in a retail space. And so one of the things we're thinking about is, that how to break up that adult classes. And so I know you're a private business. You don't have to give me exact numbers, but I was wondering what kind of 18 and above breakdown do you have for your judo versus your jiu-jitsu? And then what is the combination thereof on an annual monthly basis, on a monthly basis?
What do you mean the breakdown? Age groups? Or
from 18, how many members do you have on the mat, 18 and above for judo, 18 and above?
Okay. Yeah, that of course the prime time, that 6 o'clock class is the one that usually has the most. And that range anywhere from about 25 to 35. That's pretty much all our space. Our dojo is not that big, so that's all it would allow. We have gone higher than that. The morning classes, it never goes above a dozen, like 10 or something. And the late evening ones too. It can go up to about a dozen or 20, but it's that 6 to 7:30 time slot that pulls in the most people. We have like a 6 a.m. class, and things like that, but who wants to go to that class? We actually had an amazing Saturday. If you can pull off a nice Saturday, Sunday class, the numbers for that was big, but it's just hard getting an instructor to commit to take that time. And I don't want to take it. Telling how to run a successful dojo, and I'm out saying, I teach Monday to Friday. I don't want to give up a Saturday.
But how does it compare to the jiu-jitsu side of it?
The jiu-jitsu side for our dojo is not as big as a traditional jiu-jitsu club, because most of our time is given up to judo. And if you join a jiu-jitsu club, they can charge more, but they have jiu-jitsu every day. That every day, and it's all throughout the day. But because they have to share it with judo, you have to be someone that can only make it in those days. So that's a restriction. But on the judo side, there's no judo club that's like, just, so if you have a dojo that does judo 2-3 times a day, 2-3 times a week, that's standard. So you can compete with that. But jiu-jitsu studios are open all the time. So our jiu-jitsu has that hardship to face, but we have a pretty solid jiu-jitsu program.
Right. Is it like, I guess, is it like 50-50 judo, jiu-jitsu, 70-30 jiu-jitsu?
Oh, no, more people take judo at our dojo. More people take judo at our dojo.
Yeah, so it's fair to say that if given an equal field, judo competes very effectively against Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, for membership.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
And then the one thing I don't know about your club, it is nice, very nice looking. Do you have a floating floor?
No, we do not. Just a 2-inch flexi roll on solid concrete.
Very good numbers.
The 2 inches, fine though. You could take it's nothing like a sprung floor or a floating floor, but yeah. But the 2-inch Dolomer is nice, because for those of you guys that practice on that 3/4 inch wrestling mat or sliding foam Velcro ones, those are horrible. Sorry if some of you guys are still doing that. I didn't mean it that way.
Well, thank you, Brian, for that, for those questions. I know that Grace was a big one on sprung floors.
Yeah. I was so jealous. And she had a grant for it.
She had a grant for it. Yeah, we heard about that a couple of weeks ago. Somebody paid for it.
If I could afford it, or if I would take it. I'm not against it. I would definitely put one in. We just don't. So I'm jealous.
Well, I'm glad you said that you would take it. I think that's going to wrap it up for today, almost, because Josh Kindleberger wants to tell us something. But before that, I want to thank Sensei Roy Kawaji of Portland Judo for a great explanation of how he approaches judo and on and off the mat.
Can I give a quick closing remark?
And I think that it's great to have him do a quick closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you.
Go Roy. And then after Roy, Josh, you get on there.
Well, this is kind of like how I start the class, right? Everybody bows in, but I want to always, thanking my members who might be here listening, or even my instructors that have helped make this club so fun and successful. But I want all of you guys to just make sure that whatever you guys do in judo, and I think this really pertains to running a successful judo dojo or any dojo, I hope judo brings you happiness. If there's things about judo that's making you upset, it's something is not right. I'm going to share this short story. I know I'm kind of going over, but I'm just enjoying this time so much. And this is what I had in mind when I wanted to close it was, you know how I said I always talk with my dad and he always these stories. And when I visited him this one time, he was out in his yard pulling up vegetables or something like that. But it was just filled with like chicken or horse manure or something because he had just tilled it. And he was so happy. He was squatted down with his straw hat. And he's like, Roy, come, look at this. And I thought he must have found like a centipede. He's real, fun, curious guy like that. But he just happened to be looking at this really tiny, it was like a 2-inch flower, but had these huge, like orangish yellow flowers on it, petals on it. And he's like, where did this come from? And I was like, I don't know, bird crapped him. That's how it starts. And he's like, no, Roy, really serious. Think about it. This is like the world right now, right? This dirt and manure. It's not a nice place. But from here, how can something so beautiful grow? I want you to live your life that way. And so I think of the struggles that all of the senseis must have. It could be financial or other senseis or parents. So there's so much things that can really get you down. And it's a tough job to have as a sensei, but within this dirt and flies and everything, the sensei has to be the flower. And my dad always, I wish he told me, Roy, I want you to be a tiger. But he told me, Roy, you must be the flower. And even if you're having the worst day of your life and you don't want to go to practice, you better walk into that dojo and you better light up that room because everyone else is having a bad day. I had people that just lost their child or is sick. They didn't come in the dojo to see a sad face for me. That's the last thing they want to see. So even if it's hard, my last point is you walk into dojo and I'll say it kind of strictly, it's your job, man. You better light up that world because there's all your students are looking up to you because for some people that you're all they got. They need you. They need you in their life. So thank you, all you senseis out there, and good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Roy.
enjoy your choice.
Josh Kindleberger, you have something to say about the survey.
Thank you.
Are you there? Yeah, there you go.
Yes, thank you. First, I want to say thanks to Roy for taking your time today. I really appreciate everything you said and all the insight you've given us. If you go to the chat, I put the link in for the survey, and that'll just give us a little more insight on what we need as a group moving forward, and appreciate the time you take to fill it out and any comments you have for the group. And thanks again, Roy, for your time. I learned a lot.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much, Josh. And thanks again, Roy. And back to President Palacio.
Thank you very much.
That's you, Mitchell.
Thank you all for joining Sensei Kawaji, sharing his information on his dojo.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.